Welcome. I'm Nina Griffin, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel. This is going to be the April 2021 astrology forecast, and we'll talk about all of the major astrological events that this month is going to bring us. It is going to be available to all April 1st. Now, if you are not yet a patron and would like to get early access to these forecasts, please become one. Go to patreon.com/Nina Griffin. Otherwise, I would encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel where you will get notified as soon as a video is made public. Now first, let's talk a little bit about what happened in March. As you may remember from my earlier videos, the big story of 2021 is the Saturn-Uranus square. And this is a square that can make big changes happen on the international and national levels. And it also happens to be an aspect associated with pandemics and epidemics. How convenient. Now, this aspect was mostly active January and February so far, but it is going to be reactivated in April because of the full moon, and we'll talk about it. We will next see an appearance of Saturn and Uranus start to rear its ugly head in about June of this year. Now, March, as I mentioned earlier, was going to seed events that would come to fruition many months later. And in fact, that certainly came to pass. Venus started her new synodic cycle with the Sun when she conjoined the Sun in Aries. And this actually corresponded to the day that the U.S. state of Georgia signed into law their voter protection laws, as they call it, which are mirrored in about 39 other states with similar bills that want to make voting a little bit more difficult for people who might not have the means. Now, I've explained before that Venus relates to social harmony, including racial harmony. So when Venus goes retrograde this December, I think that we will once again have to deal with what was seeded in this particular month. We will have to deal with the issues of equitable access to voting, like I said, at the end of this year, early next year. Now, the first half of April is still going to be influenced by the March 28th full moon at 8 Libra, because a new moon and a full moon will be effective for about 2 weeks. Now, Venus was the ruler of that particular full moon, which means that topics of relating, social harmony, getting along with other people are going to be key. Now, Venus in this chart is in Aries, and she conjoins and is received by the Sun into Aries, his exaltation. So this 2-week period will be intensely about relating and how we get along with people who are different from ourselves. I noted that the trial of the policeman who killed George Floyd, that trial began the day after the full moon, March 29th, which seems very appropriate. We also noted that the full moon at 8 Libra exactly conjoins the fixed star Vendimiatrix, also known as the Widowmaker. So we can see that this has to do with personal tragedy and loss, as well as issues of relationships and social harmony. We also often see connections to sex scandals when the Sun and Venus are so close together, especially in very incendiary signs like Aries. And we certainly saw that here in the United States in late March, where a congressman has been accused of trafficking an underage girl, which, if true, would certainly cause a lot of trouble for him politically and personally. But this is exactly the kind of thing that you would expect to come up with a Sun-Venus full moon. All right, now let's get started and look at April week by week. So April 3rd, Mercury will enter Aries until April 19th. So he goes through extremely fast, both because Mercury is so fast and also Aries is a very fast sign. The discussion of any kind, whether personal or national, is going to get more focused and also more pointed and heated. Certainly there is going to be an emphasis on getting things done very quickly, and it's going to be a big contrast from Mercury having been in Pisces, which of course is not very fast and not very focused. So it's going to be quite a dramatic shift in how we talk about things, and also in our personal discussions, it's probably a good idea to be a little bit more patient and tactful than usual. April 6th and 10th are two connected aspects. Venus will first sextile Mars and then Jupiter. So really that first week of April, we're looking at a week-long process where we see justice being done for some kind of social crime or injustice. It could be very satisfying with that Venus sextile Jupiter. It could feel like justice is being done. and people are getting what they deserve. April 9th is going to be a fairly significant aspect with Mars square Neptune at 21 Gemini and Pisces. This combination is not very good. It can bring about mass disaster, and it's generally bad for pandemics, especially because Gemini is an air sign which rules diseases that are transmitted by the breath. In areas where there aren't many or any vaccinated people, the situation could start to get pretty serious now with higher caseloads. April 10th, Mercury will sextile Saturn, which represents cautious movement. This is about business taking a very rule-based approach. And this could be a week where we have, greater guidance about COVID, what's safe to do and what isn't safe to do. There are still ground rules, but they're being very gingerly rolled back by the health authorities step by tiny step, or what probably should be tiny step, not in all cases. I think we will also see the start of discussion about the big bill that just came through in the United States for our infrastructure, which of course is very Saturnian, especially Saturn in Aquarius. Mercury sextile Saturn could indicate some kind of early agreement, although the general expectation is that it's probably going to take a few months to really complete this and get this signed into law. April 11th, we see the new moon, and it's going to be at 22 Aries. Now, this is a very harmonious new moon, very nice actually. It has Venus and Mercury in Aries with the new moon, and the new moon also sextiles Jupiter and Mars. So it's very nice, not really hard aspects going on to the full moon, or to the new moon, excuse me. However, it may play into the hands of people or forces who are causing problems, as represented by Mars, because that Mars-Neptune square from earlier in the week is still going to be present and imprinting onto this particular lunation. For now, I think that people who are usually bent on destruction are going to be surprisingly cooperative because they have to be. But of course, that is not the same as being defeated. They are just temporarily playing nice, but it doesn't mean that they are going to be any more helpful in reality. Now, in week 3, we have a lot of astrological activity. April 13th, the Sun will sextile Mars at 24 Aries in Gemini, which will continue that new moon theme of cooperation between the powers that be and the forces of disruption of the status quo. The Sun is received by Mars, but Mars has no dignity. So there is this sense that, yes, it's cooperation, but it's not necessarily worth a whole lot. There isn't a lot of lasting power, at least on the side of Mars, that's going to take this into the long term. April 14th, Venus will enter her own sign, Taurus, which is usually wonderful. It's certainly a welcome break for Venus, who has been struggling through, going through her detriment in Aries. However, this year, she will make pretty much an immediate application and in orb to square Saturn. So I think that this year, the Venus in Taurus season is going to be marked by a tension between relationships and rules. Certainly in COVID times, I think Venus has shown that it represents people's urge to socialize and party and have fun, but the applying square with Saturn suggests impending reality, especially in places where herd immunity is too low. Saturn still has a lot of significations with the pandemic and with COVID. Now, April 15th, the Sun will sextile Jupiter at 25 Aries in Aquarius. And this is a good day to persuade authorities to move towards justice, generosity, and optimism. So if you're asking for a raise this day or the previous day could be a good day to do it. And I think in the public sphere, we'll see something similar as well. April 16th is interesting. We've got Sun square Pluto at 26 Aries in Capricorn. This will indicate light shining on some of the darkest places at the moment. The truth might come out. We might see revelations of things that are disturbing. And more generally, it really sort of lays bare the struggle between the forces of light and darkness. Same day, April 16th, Mars will trine Jupiter at 26 Gemini and Aquarius. And neither planet has a lot of essential strength in this particular location of the zodiac, so it could indicate alliances between people who want to disrupt things, Mars, and people with resources, Jupiter, or sometimes people in the judicial sphere, because that's Jupiter as well. But these alliances may not be entirely mutually beneficial or lasting. Just because two planets come together with a trine doesn't mean that they end up getting everything that they want or that it's a good idea for them long term. April 17th, Mercury at 26 Aries will sextile Jupiter and Mars at 26 Aquarius Gemini, and Mercury will then square Pluto. Now, this combination all in one day, I think we can expect complex legal machinations regarding power and big negotiations. There could also be international negotiations going on, whether public or not, but there's going to be a significant tendency toward making power moves. And when I say power moves, they could be moves that are more like bullying. You know, they're not necessarily to the advantage of both parties. It's exercising power because one can. April 18th, Mercury will conjoin the Sun in Aries at 29 Aries, and this will start a new synodic cycle for Mercury. It's a new cycle for communication, travel, and commerce, all of which are mercurial. And it's not totally comfortable because Mercury in Aries is in a diurnal sign, but because he is now going to be behind the Sun, he rises after the Sun, he is nocturnal by position. And so the leader is the Sun in Aries, of course, the sign of the king or the ruler. So he's still the leader now, and Mercury will have to follow the Sun. But Mercury's in Aries, so he's kind of like, he's kind of like the court advisor who really wants to be the guy who tells everyone what to do, but he can't, right? He still has to follow what the king is doing. So it's not really a good time for people who want to take away the bully pulpit from authorities who are still going to be very firmly in charge. One of the ways this could manifest is that media now follows the government, at least for this period, rather than vice versa, rather than government being responsive to allegations or stories in the media. Now, in the fourth full week of April, on the 19th, Mercury and the Sun will enter Taurus almost simultaneously. And certainly discourse calms down from Aries, but also slows down or even gets bogged down. Things probably don't get decided quickly now, but all information is going to be fully chewed and fully digested several times in true bovine manner. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an opportunity to take in some of what we have learned during Mercury's journey through Aries, and then put that to good use and start thinking about how it can be implemented in our lives. April 22nd, Venus will conjoin Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus, and this could be violence against women that's in the news. When the moon conjoined Uranus in March, it actually led to the Atlanta massage parlor shootings. So places associated with women, sex, beauty, entertainment could all be targeted now, but Venus also rules small children. It's a co-ruler of small children along with Mercury. April 23rd, Mars will enter Cancer until June 11th. That's a big change for Mars because Mars in Cancer is in the sign of his fall, which is very negative. And so it's a big loss in dignity from just being peregrine in Gemini. Now remember, the last time that Mars lost a lot of dignity was January 6th. And you might recall there was a slight hint of a temper tantrum here in the United States. So ultimately, around this time, around April 23rd, Mars gets his rear end handed to him once again, but he might tantrum, right? That's just what he does. So if you are taking on a Mars role in any situation in your life, beware. This could be a dramatic loss of power or backing that you had been counting on. April 23rd, same day, Mercury will conjoin Uranus very shortly after Venus conjoining Uranus. Speech and violence coincide now. We could see violence associated with students or schools. And so basically what we've got, which will happen April 25th, I'm jumping forward a little bit, later in the week, Mercury conjoins Venus at 13 Taurus, which normally brings justice and harmony, but I think it's going to be, there's going to be some restrictions associated with that. Some places could see further lockdowns, but there could also have been some violence earlier in the week that's going to make a lot of those Mercurial and Venusian events, like reopening of schools in some places, kind of a bittersweet experience. April 24th, Venus will square Saturn at 12 Taurus and Aquarius, so there's that tension between fun and responsibility, and that's really been building since Venus entered Taurus in mid-April. Sad to say, Saturn will win this round, as he is a superior planet to Venus, and he's also in a superior square to Venus. So reality will have the last word. April 25th, Mercury will then square Saturn at 12 Taurus and Aquarius, which ties again into Venus squaring Saturn. So there could be restrictions on women or children, And schools, again, may close in some areas. So it's kind of like schools open, but like with a lot of fear and with a lot of restrictions. Now, the final week of April is the 5th week. And April 26th, we get a full moon at 7 Scorpio. And that, of course, will carry over into early May as well. This full moon will reactivate the Saturn-Uranus square. So places that have low herd immunity could expect cases to go up again. You know, if you are not vaccinated, this could be a higher risk period of catching COVID, so be cautious. The interesting thing is that Scorpio particularly rules toxins and diseases because scorpions are poisonous creatures. On the plus side, the other side of the full moon, the sun conjoins Venus and Mercury. So for some people, it's an opportunity to return to school and fun. As with every full moon, which of course has moon on the one side and the sun on the other, it depends which side of the lunation you're experiencing. Are you experiencing the sun side or the moon side? Sometimes there's not much difference. In this particular full moon, there's a pretty dramatic difference. Now, April 27th, Pluto will turn retrograde, which is not always noticeable in daily life, but sometimes it is visible in international affairs. Just because Pluto is such a slow-moving big planet, it has to do with big organizations, big nations. So you sometimes see very large companies or very large countries decide to take a more reactive or passive role for a while instead of pushing the envelope, right? So they are receding for the moment. Now, on April 30th, the sun will conjoin Uranus at 10 degrees Taurus, which could bring a dramatic announcement, a discovery, some kind of governmental action because the sun rules authorities. There could be some kind of shocking news today. So as you can see, this month we'll really seesaw between fun and restriction, and in some cases, a resurgence of COVID under influence of that full moon, which is going to activate Saturn-Uranus square. But there's also a clear sense of leadership this month, whether you agree with it or not. It's very easy to tell who's in charge. There's really only going to be one person or one entity at the head of the parade. Sometimes it feels like the parade is leading. Other times, as today, there is a very clear person in charge in front saying, this is what we're all going in this direction. If you haven't yet seen my whole year 2021 forecast video, it is available on YouTube for free, so you can check it out. And of course, again, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel on YouTube to get notified of new videos. Thanks again, I'm Nina Griffin, and this is the Astrology and Magic channel.